The next week is about future trends in business, things that are bringing widespread change to how companies do business, including artificial intelligence, uh, automation, and today's topic, the circular economy. And uh, the goal for today is for you to understand what the circular economy is and how businesses are becoming more sustainable, um, creating products that last longer and leaving less of an environmental footprint by participating in the circular economy. The circular economy is a more sustainable way of producing, distributing, and consuming products. So we are not creating something that will be discarded or thrown away when it's done and be used just a single time, but look for ways to reuse, reduce, repurpose, recycle uh, in order to minimize the environmental impact. And this will also be good because it will reduce costs for the businesses and the consumers. And it will just, the innovation will create new types of products. So, uh, for instance, a company that chooses to make durable products is participating in the circular economy. Maybe a product that can be repaired or refurbished or is made of longer lasting materials. Just reducing how much is discarded during production, how much water or goes into the production, reducing the amount of pollution, and making things more affordable. Uh, by looking at new ways of production and just by reusing products when possible. Here's an example of a circular economy. Cucumbers would come in a clear plastic wrapping that was not recycled. So, a way to make it more sustainable, it would be to make the packaging, out of plant material.
As the federal government moves to ban single-use plastic, some businesses are getting ahead of the regulations. One of them is a farming operation in southwestern Ontario that's taking the wraps off its cucumbers. Chris Ensing has the details.
Essex County is greenhouse country. 250 acres of it belongs to Westmoreland Topline Farms.
This is where the raw material comes from.
They grow millions of cucumbers plucked from these vines and processed on site, each one shrink wrapped in plastic.
These plastic rolls are for the triple wrap, right? The plastic is there to hold the respiration of the cucumber in, basically to lock in its freshness and keep it from oxidizing and spoiling prematurely.
That ends this week. A new production line sends produce through what's essentially a car wash for cukes. Plastic wrap replaced by this spray, an edible, tasteless mist that's plant-based, developed in California. What exactly is going on that cucumber?
The beautiful thing about Appeal is that we're actually using materials that are already found in the skins, the seeds, the pulp of plants. A typical English cucumber equates to about 1.6 grams of plastic. If you were to actually do the math on all the cucumbers that are consumed in Canada, it's about 800 metric tons worth of plastic, or 2 billion plastic straws.
We've gone from one of the most complained about items in the produce aisle to now a completely plastic-free cucumber.
As the federal government moves.
So that would be an example of the circular economy, looking for a more environmentally friendly way to package the cucumbers. So the old type of economy, be cradle to grave, from making something until it is disposed after the consumer has used it. And it's a linear life, it begins with production and ends when you throw it away. But younger consumers like yourselves are more conscious about where this waste goes after disposal. So the cradle to cradle is the idea of a product that continues to be reused, even if it regenerated, fixed up, and tries to eliminate waste, because instead of disposing the product at the end, maybe there is a way to use that material again. So some of the plant sprays, the kind of to seal those cucumbers, were made out of plant material that would have otherwise been disposed. So in the old traditional economy would be called the linear economy. And take it out of the earth, make it, waste it. We're talking today about the circular economy, where we're trying to, acquire the raw materials responsibly, design them in a way that is conscientious, that will last longer, use less material, using less of that plastic wrap in the cucumbers, finding ways to reuse it, transporting it responsibly, collecting it afterwards, perhaps recycling it. There will be some waste, but the idea is only minimum waste is discarded, and most of it goes back into the economy like a big circle. So one thing is the raw materials. Everything is made out of raw materials. So the idea, use less of them, extract them more efficiently without polluting. Finding the materials locally. So there needed to be a big transportation expense. So some lithium for batteries and electric vehicles can come from China, but we could also get it from northern and Ontario and northern Quebec, using renewable energy sources, and avoid the raw materials that require excessive processing. So if we're making electric vehicles, but we're shipping the battery materials from overseas, we're not making as big a dent on climate change as we could. If we had a local source for some of that graphite and other materials, then the environmental impact would be more. Here's a site in Quebec. Trying to design new innovative products, using the best available techniques that we know due to technology, getting the right facilities, the right equipment, the right staff, so that can be done in an effective way. So here's a sort of a carbon neutral facility in Germany, and you can see the renewable energy. The equipment inside is of the top quality. Looks like there's a green roof. So the idea is it's not putting extra carbon out there because of all the renewable energy. So in production, just being more efficient. So saving money, saving time, saving materials, less waste. Measuring the waste, new labeling to show how much carbon and water was used, and just trying to look for new ways of doing things. So trying to perhaps cotton for fashion takes a ton of water, a lot of water. It's a big use of water. So using better quality cotton will reduce the amount of water needed in the production of clothes and make it more sustainable. And here's an example of some of the water footprints for common products. I bet you didn't know how much water went into some of these common items, and there's definitely room for improvement. And you can see some of these carbon footprint labels in different countries. The top right one is the Canadian one, about how much carbon was generated, and it's something you can look for just like you would nutritional information. The distribution, improving the logistics so that the shorter supply chains, Maybe you use an electric vehicle or recondition old vehicles so they last longer. Finding local ways to prepare it. Instead of having a meeting where everyone travels to the meeting, we could use video conferencing to reduce the amount of fuel. So, here on Eglinton West, there's an Afro-Canadians farmers market. So there aren't a lot of big grocery stores in that area, but this provides locally sourced fresh produce to the neighborhood where it would be difficult to find these products, and sort of creates an event where the neighborhood can come without too much commuting, walk over, pick it up, and have fresh produce. So this is your part of the circular economy, the consumption. You instead of reduce how much you use, refuse to take some extra material. You use it, you reuse it, you try to repair it, you recycle it. Maybe you choose not to consume certain products that you know have a high carbon footprint or have a lot of waste. Finding ways to improve the lifespan of products, using the products at the end of life, finding ways to use them in another capacity. So Patagonia would encourage you and posts videos of how you can repair Patagonia products for a longer lasting life because they have a very sustainable philosophy. What are some of these strategies for the circular economy? Efficiency, doing things better than before, substituting the old ways that were wasteful for new ways, choosing long lasting, choosing better design, using assets like machinery better, recycling material like, aluminum, paper, toner, whatever you can, and new ways of doing it. Eco-design means making it desirable for consumers with a minimal amount of environmental impact. So we don't just make it, there's that stereotype sometimes that if it's environmentally good, it doesn't look good. Well, eco-design would be, let's make it satisfying for the consumers and, also minimize the environment footprint. So here's a little bit of an example down at Dundas and Bathurst. They take these reconditioned shipping containers and allow small businesses to get started in them. So this is good for the small business because they don't have a lot of capital, and they can it is a small space to get started. And then it was a sort of a pathway by a community center and a hospital that wasn't used a lot. So it's using things in new ways, kind of creating a common area. And then the shipping containers, they were going to be disposed of. However, they can be upcycled and converted into small stores. Zero waste is the concept of having no waste by using the best production techniques, packaging, distribution, and recycling, avoiding emissions as much as possible. Check out CanadaReduces.ca for businesses that follow the zero waste philosophy. So Unboxed Market is a sustainable grocery store, and you can see that none of the containers are single-use disposable. They're all reusable or recyclable. Closed loop, kind of the idea, you did see some of the minimum waste in that first diagram, going towards the landfill. A closed loop tries to close it entirely and put everything back into the production of the next generation of products, extending the life, reconditioning, preventing waste. Waste from one product becomes an input for the other, so that plant waste from one part of the farm becomes the input for the sealant for the other cucumbers. So No Fear takes these ropes and nylon fishing nets and makes nylon yarn that can be a long-lasting carpet. Sometimes actually the inspiration comes from nature, and sometimes when people look at birds and use their concepts for aerodynamics, or looking at plants and how they hooked on to clothing to become Velcro, uh, or using sharks and their skin for swimsuit material in the Olympics. And so these are things that occur naturally that are copied, and often these designs are very sustainable. So, an example of that would be the Sagrada Familia Cathedral in Barcelona, where the design is inspired by nature and systems that can be found in nature. That's biomimicry. So why is this important? Well, because 45% of carbon emissions come from the production and consumption of goods, and it's expected to cause a big drop in biodiversity because of the extraction of natural resources, and we extract a lot of natural resources in Canada. Only 8.6% of materials are circled back in, so this could be a huge area of growth. So this is kind of an example of a climate solution and a First Nation company where they're sort of growing this forest to put to take in CO2, but also sort of sustainably logging it in a very, very controlled way so that it becomes a revenue source for the coastal First Nations in BC. Areas where this circular economy is important: electronics, textiles, food. There's a lot of waste there. Plastics, reducing single-use plastics, and just capital equipment is just that like big industrial machinery that you might not personally buy, but a business would. So Quebec has a company called Loop Industry. Everyone's drinking from water bottles, so they break down the plastics so that in a way that these water bottles that Evian makes can be more easily recycled. And the profits or not the profits, just the total amount of the economy is projected to increase up to nearly $5 trillion by the end of the decade, and could be 50 trillion by 2050. And it's like, how can this be involved in business? Well, make it a win-win situation, like a way that it wins for business and wins for consumers and wins for the planet. So, people throw away food waste, about 200 kilograms per family. So feedback gives people time-sensitive promotions. Consumers save money. Restaurants avoid wasting extra food. So you can get a deal on some of the food that would otherwise be discarded. So the restaurants get a little bit of that. Plus, they don't waste the food, and the consumers get cheaper food. So this is the incentive for both consumer and business to participate. So just be aware, it's not a guarantee that it will work. Uber tried this e-bike service in 2018. The idea that you could kind of rent an e-bike, and there's just the expenditure of all these e-bikes without sort of checking out to see if people had the interest in renting e-bikes led to a big loss. So like any other business, think things through. So if you watch these slides, you can learn more about how the secondhand clothing industry is really growing. And it's growing up. You might know a friend who likes thrifting. It's growing to $80 billion.